Prepare to uncover the real truth behind the avoidant discard, a psychological phenomenon that tends to occur specifically with avoidant attachment styles that often leaves partners and exes with broken hearts and leaves a lot of confusion and lack of clarity in the wake of the avoidant discard itself. In today's video, we're going to do a deep dive into the mystery behind why this actually happens and what you can do if you find yourself on the receiving end of this particular scenario. Now, if you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. My name is Thais, and I'm really glad that you stopped by. We are going to do a deep dive right here and now into the avoidant discard and how it can actually be traumatic. So we'll start by explaining what this actually is. Then we'll dive into how this actually affects partners when this takes place or exes of the avoidant attachment style. And if you stick around till the end, we'll do a deeper dive into what you can actually do to heal your heart and to recover from this experience. So, first and foremost, the term avoidant discard essentially refers to a pattern of behavior exhibited by avoidant attachment styles in relationships. In this particular video, although there's also a fearful avoidant version of this, we're going to start by talking about the more dismissive avoidant version of this. Now, avoidant attachment refers to a psychological set of patterns where somebody may avoid emotional intimacy and closeness in relationships as a means of self protection. And obviously, in the context of a romantic relationship, this avoidant discard may occur when an individual with avoidant attachment tendencies abruptly ends a relationship as a means of avoiding becoming too emotionally involved or too vulnerable. And the avoidant discard is generally characterized by a very sudden and unexplained breakup, usually also with a reluctance to actually address the root problem or issue and talk it out or work things through, and also a tendency to distance oneself emotionally from a partner. And what happens is this behavior can be deeply hurtful to a partner on the receiving end who may feel completely blindsided and even really confused by this sudden ending of a relationship. So, how does it actually affect somebody on the receiving end? Well, the first thing that's so important to recognize is there tends to be this extreme lack of closure. If somebody leaves a relationship seemingly out of the blue without discussing issues, without actually addressing issues, and sometimes it can be even when the relationship seems to be going well, it can leave somebody feeling so confused, so caught off guard, and absolutely blindsided by this entire scenario, which also leaves this person with a total lack of closure received from the avoidant who left the relationship all of a sudden. So, on top of this, the second major thing that it does is it tends to exacerbate any pre existing abandonment wounds or can even create abandonment wounds because of the intense emotionality of the situation. So, because an avoidant often leaves either because they're suddenly scared of being too vulnerable and their own feelings scare them, it can actually cause them to leave without any kind of indication prior to this that this is something that was on their mind or they were thinking or feeling. And the way they often go about leaving during the avoidant discard is without having a proper conversation or proper closure. There may be a total lack of conversation altogether, or in really difficult cases, we may even see an avoidant attachment style leave a relationship through a text or through just kind of fading out, even if there might have been a certain degree of seriousness or investment from both parties in the relationship situation, where a text or just fizzling out all of a sudden might not have been the appropriate approach to this matter. So, not only is there the lack of closure, lack of understanding, and a new creation of abandonment wounds, or at least this re traumatization of past abandonment wounds, which can leave somebody in a lot of pain or suffering, but it often leaves the person on the receiving end of this, unfortunately, in a space of really personalizing this behavior. It's something that I found over and over again is that the person on the receiving end of this discard often ends up doing a lot of self-blaming, thinking it was all my fault, or things like if I only did this one thing differently, maybe this discarding wouldn't have happened. But I think it's really important to note that if you are on the receiving end of this, there are much deeper matters at heart here that cause this to take place that really are not just one person's fault, particularly the person being discarded in this situation. So, when we look at the self blaming aspect, a question I would love for you to ask yourself if you are or have been on the receiving end of this in some form is, what are the stories I'm actually telling myself? Am I telling myself if only I were good enough, this wouldn't have taken place. Or if only I was more supportive or more loving or more attentive or changed my behavior in some way, this wouldn't have happened. And if we cling to those stories, one of the most difficult things that happens is that just the attachment to those stories ends up being an attachment to that relationship. We think, oh, if only I had done something differently, this wouldn't have taken place. And by taking on that blame, it makes you attach yourself to the past and to all of the regret that's coming through those stories and narratives that you're feeding to yourself on autopilot. And honestly, it's very heartbreaking and it's making an already difficult situation so much more difficult. So, I want to go through this together here for a moment and talk about what you can actually do in this situation. And step one here of three major steps is you can actually start by dumping out those stories that you might have been running on autopilot. And the most common ones I'll see are I'm not worthy of love, or I'm going to be abandoned, in any relationship, or I'm going to be alone forever, or if only I did ABC differently, this wouldn't have taken place. If only I was better in some way or more lovable, or if only my behavior shifted in some form. And so, what I want you to be able to do here is dump out any of those stories or narratives that you find yourself running and rerunning on autopilot. Because again, those narratives are you just attaching to regret, which is in a sense keeping you attached to this past relationship and situation. When a discard happens, the best thing we can do is actually try to move on and get closure. Now, once you've actually aired all of those different stories and put them on paper, I want you to really question them. Things like, if I had only done this one thing differently, everything else would be different or have changed. Is that true? Can you really know for a fact that that's true? In fact, could it be something other than that? Could it be something like this person had a lot of different things that they needed to work through or work on in regards to their fears of commitment or vulnerability that would have actually been the root of these different challenges. And each time you go through one of these narratives that's been running on autopilot, what you're empowered to start doing is shedding these things, shedding your attachment to these ideas or concepts that when you do attach to them, they cause a tremendous amount of suffering. So by really questioning them and even looking for opposing evidence, it will help you release yourself from these chains that are keeping you attached to somebody and in this mode of regret. Step two, when we don't have closure, we can create our own closure. Now, what we're usually actually seeking when we're looking for closure is we're looking for a need to be met around certainty. And what I mean by this is usually we get a sense of certainty when there's a closure conversation. So if you are not getting certainty from this person because of the discard event, then you want to create your own certainty in your life going forward. And what you can do is you can actually take out what were the key lessons from this experience? What did this experience teach me? Did it teach me to look out for myself a little bit more, or to learn to meet my own needs, or maybe not to put all of my eggs in one basket? Or perhaps to put myself in a position where I can be empowered to communicate my needs or vet more effectively for the future in terms of who I want to date and what qualities and characteristics are important to me. I mean, there can be so many lessons that come out of this, but generally, the more that we find these lessons, we get this sense of closure and peace because we get these key takeaways from the event that help us kind of rest assured that we won't have to repeat these things in the future. And when we know we're less likely to repeat these painful events in the future, it gives us an internal sense of certainty. And thus, it's a form of creating our own closure. So, this can be a very powerful way of going about this particular situation.
So, I have some really exciting news, and it's that integrated attachment theory training is back. So, who is this for? Well, of course, this is for any individual who wants to make an impact and really be of service to others while also obtaining freedom and flexibility and abundance in their lives. And this is also for anybody who's already a counselor, a therapist, a coach, and just really wants to expand their toolkit. We've had so many people enter into the integrated attachment theory program because they're just looking to obtain a certain degree of mastery in terms of understanding their own attachment patterns and also the attachment patterns of maybe their children or partner or other loved ones in their lives, so they can really support those people and understand them more deeply. So if you're interested, click the link below to learn more and dive in with me. And I'd love to see you on the other side before seats run out.
And number three, You want to ask yourself, what needs was this person meeting in my life in general? And when we grieve something, usually one of the biggest features in regards to what we're grieving is we're grieving the void of those needs being met. We're used to relying on somebody getting our needs met in a specific form. So when that person is suddenly gone from our lives, there's this void left behind where we were used to getting those needs. And so what you can do is you can write a list out of all of the needs that this person represented, and then you can come up with new ideas and ways to meet those needs in your personal life, but also in your life with others. And by doing just that, you empower yourself to fill that void that was causing the feelings of grief to begin with. And these are three powerful ways to really start overcoming the traumatic parts of a discard and all of the things that are missing and the root cause reasons that it stings so much. Now, if you want to do a deeper dive into this topic, you can check out the How to Heal from a Breakup course at the Personal Development School. And we actually have a promotion happening right now for over 25% off of access to every single course in the Personal Development School, as well as all of the other features we have. So I do 3 live webinars every single week where you can join in, you can ask me questions. We have daily support groups led by other coaches, counselors, or trained facilitators where you can dive in and ask questions in support groups there, practice learning different tools. And really, all of PDS is designed to help you become securely attached in the fastest way possible while healing different attachment wounds, making sure that you can communicate more effectively so you can get heard, get connected, and making sure that you learn to set better boundaries and self soothe in really effective ways, but have all of that daily support from myself and our other counselors and coaches inside of the school. So you can check that out. I'll put a link down below. Thank you so much for stopping by and for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying this channel. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.